Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Avexia webinar series. Our topic for today is testing for gut health. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of being joined by an exciting guest, Chase Winterroth, Vice President of Sales at US BioTek. With nearly 15 years in the functional health industry, Chase Winterroth offers extensive insight into the diagnostic testing market. As Vice President of Sales at US BioTek Laboratories, he works closely with healthcare providers to help them choose and leverage the right testing services for their patients. Chase is passionate about guiding practitioners to get the most value from advanced laboratory tools, ensuring they can translate test results into effective, personalized care. Without further delay, I will now turn the webinar over to Chase.
Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Chase Winterroth, and I'm the Vice President of Sales here at US BioTek and Real-Time Labs. For those of you who may not be familiar, US BioTek is a world leader in gut health testing. We began our journey back in the 1990s with a primary focus on food sensitivity testing, and over the past 7 years, we've expanded into a wide range of testing categories, including the microbiome, hormones, and toxins. Last year, we took an exciting step forward with the acquisition of Real-Time Labs, a company recognized globally as the leader in urinary mycotoxin testing. Today, I will be discussing testing for gut health, highlighting several key laboratory tests to consider when assessing overall gut health and exploring how these different systems interact. As you'll see, there's a strong connection between these testing categories, each playing a crucial role in helping your patients achieve optimal wellness. Here at US BioTek, we refer to the gut as the second brain, and for good reason. It's directly connected to your brain. Think about it. When you're nervous or scared, you can actually feel it in your gut. And that's no coincidence. Your gut and brain are in constant communication with each other. Your gut is an incredibly complex ecosystem, home to trillions of microorganisms, including bacteria, fungi, viruses, immune cells, and specialized tissues like the mucosal barrier, all working together in a symbiotic relationship. This ecosystem has its own neural network, which communicates with your central nervous system through a two-way highway known as the vagus nerve. Messages travel along this system using chemical messengers called neurotransmitters, influencing everything from digestion and metabolism to immunity, mood, behavior, and even hormone and vitamin regulation. In short, when your gut isn't functioning properly, it can have a wide-ranging impact on a patient's overall health and well-being. I'd like to start with a few interesting gut facts that I love sharing with people. First, about 80% of the body's immune system resides in the gut. That means your gut is your body's first line of defense against colds, infections, and other illnesses. Second, the gut contains more than 100 trillion bacteria. That's a huge number, all working together to maintain balance and support overall health. Third, the gut houses one of the body's 3 nervous systems, the enteric nervous system. This system independently manages digestion, nutrient absorption, and the movement of food through the digestive tract. It's an incredibly critical player in how your body processes and uses what you eat. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, the brain and the gut communicate through a two-way pathway called the vagus nerve using chemical messengers that we all know as neurotransmitters. In fact, around 80% of serotonin and dopamine production, the neurotransmitters that are responsible for happiness, motivation, emotional balance, drive, they are produced in the gut. So yes, your gut truly influences your mood, energy, and overall well-being. It's pretty fascinating stuff, wouldn't you all agree? As you can see on the screen, poor gut health has been linked to many different conditions from IBS, allergies, mental health disorders, and just so much more. But first, let's talk about leaky gut, a phrase we've all heard before, but what exactly is it? Is it a disease? No. Leaky gut is a symptom, not a disease. It's no more of a disease than diarrhea is. Our entire GI tract is lined with specialized cells called epithelial cells. These cells form a protective barrier that keeps harmful substances out of the bloodstream. When these cells become damaged or inflamed, small gaps can form in the intestinal lining. Through these gaps, food particles, bacteria, viruses, and toxins can slip into the bloodstream, and that's what we refer to as leaky gut. Once that happens, the immune system detects these foreign invaders and mounts a defense, triggering a wave of inflammation throughout the whole entire body. This chronic inflammation can contribute to a variety of health issues, and one of the biggest victims of this process is the gut flora itself, leading to further imbalance and dysfunction. So what causes leaky guts? And that's what we're going to discuss today. Could be food sensitivities and allergies, toxins, poor quality diet, alcohol consumption, medications, smoking, diseases, stress, and you'll see how all the testing kind of aligns with these causes. Common symptoms associated with leaky gut, changes in the digestive system. Someone, does not have a solid form of, bowel movement, hormonal imbalance, autoimmune diseases, skin conditions, arthritis, mental health, food allergies and sensitivities, and just so much more. I once worked with a doctor who told me something that's always stuck with me throughout my career. If you're not testing, you're guessing. That's what he always said. That simple phrase has guided me throughout my career. Testing is essential because without it, we're relying on assumptions rather than data. It's important to ask the right questions to narrow down which tests to run. Nobody has a crystal ball. There will always be a bit of a trial and error in the process. Sometimes when a patient invests in a test and it turns out not to reveal the root cause, it can feel frustrating, and that's completely understandable. I'm there too with it. But it's also valuable progress. Each test helps rule out possibilities, bringing you one step closer to identifying the true source of their symptoms. The human body is incredibly complex, and sometimes one discovery can lead you down another unexpected path. But remember, health is a journey, and as practitioners, you're walking that journey alongside your patients every step of the way. Tests to consider to assess gut health. GI microbiome stool testing obviously is going to be number one. Next would be toxins, and whether it be environmental toxins, mycotoxins, you have neurotransmitter function, food sensitivity testing, food allergy testing, celiac testing, and hormone testing. But first, let's talk briefly about the obvious, the GI microbiome. Leaky gut leads to inflammation. Inflammation leads to bacterial overgrowth. This overgrowth is unhospitable to healthy bacteria. The balance of healthy bacteria is critical in maintaining good health, period. Symptoms to do a GI microbiome test. So there's the obvious: mucus in the stool, excessive flatulence, diarrhea or watery stool, unintended weight loss, weakness or fatigue, bloating, stomach pain, nausea, vomiting, blood in the stool, fever. All these are tests to do a microbiome test. But one of the not so obvious is recent travel out of the country. So someone came back and all of a sudden from South America or Central America and is just not feeling right, consider a GI microbiome test. The United States, we baby our microbiome systems, so sometimes travels to other countries can really test our microbiomes, and we're not used to the diets down there or certain things that may be in their water. From just one simple stool collection, we get a look at all the gut elements to assess who the culprits are. A comprehensive functional stool test allows you to see a lot more versus traditional stool tests that gives you a much less comprehensive overview as to what is actually going on. What does the GI test tell you? US BioTek actually has a very impressive portfolio of stool testing, ranging from our GI Basic, Standard, Advanced to our Gut IQ. Our GI Basic starts, you look at parasites and worms, opportunistic bacteria, fungi and yeast, bacterial pathogens, viral pathogens, normal bacteria, gut flora, and the markers build on that. The GI Standard then includes short-chain fatty acids and functional markers like zonulin, which I'll discuss in the next slide. The GI Advanced is PCR with sensitivities, so we're actually looking at antibiotic and yeast sensitivities, telling you which antibiotics or actually will be effective in treating the patient. So that gives you the results as well as the treatment. And the gut IQ, that is metagenomic shotgun sequencing. So we're looking at all the usual targets, but we're also getting some antibiotic resistant genes information. So you're getting looking at things at the genetic level. So you're actually able to see, which antibiotics they're going to be resistant to on the genetic level. So again, really cool line of testing here, ranging from our GI Basic, Standard, Advanced, and Gut IQ. So no matter what your test preference is, we have them all. One thing that I love to point out is the value of testing zonulin. So zonulin is a protein that helps control how leaky or tight the gut lining is by regulating the junctions between the intestinal cells. Basically, zonulin is like the gatekeeper, deciding what gets through the gut wall and into the bloodstream. The awesome part with US BioTek, zonulin testing is already included in the GI Standard, GI Advanced, and Gut IQ profiles. Other labs usually charge an extra $60 to $150 for it, so it's a great built-in value for you and your patients. Next, I'd like to talk about toxins and mycotoxins. First, I would like to go over the difference between an environmental toxin and a mycotoxin. Environmental toxins are substances or organic compounds that can be human-made or naturally occurring. They are often found in consumer good products, clothing, furniture, cleaning products, building supplies, the materials that our homes are built from. These toxins can be inhaled, absorbed through the skin, or even injected. Whereas on the other hand, you have mycotoxins that are the product of mold. It's not mold itself. A mycotoxin is mold's defense mechanism. So think of it as the ink of an octopus or the spray of a skunk. Mycotoxins are often inhaled by moldy environments, but they can also be consumed, which I'll go over in a few slides. Symptoms of toxin exposure often overlap with other GI issues. Individuals may experience GI distress, skin problems, autoimmune reactions, or respiratory difficulties. These symptoms can make it challenging to determine whether the root cause is gut dysbiosis, food sensitivity, toxin exposure, or something else entirely. This is why comprehensive testing is so critical, because it ensures that we are evaluating all possible contributing factors. So mycotoxins and where can they be found? So mycotoxins can be found in many places, and the home is often one of the biggest sources. Almost all homes have some trace of mold. The difference is whether it's a little or a lot. So mold can go unseen for years, often hiding behind the walls, under carpets, or in ceilings, until health problems start to begin to appear with your patients. Bathrooms are a common hotspot because of constant moisture. But humid climates like in Florida or Texas also make mold growth more likely, even without obvious leaks. Mycotoxins are also present in food, particularly agricultural products. They are chemically stable and can survive food processing, showing up in items like nuts, cheese, coffee beans, something that I'm from Seattle, so we love our coffee up here in Seattle, and also alcoholic beverages. There's no need to panic. Occasional consumption is unlikely to cause harm, but think of your gut like a bucket, and each exposure is a drop, and over time, that bucket can start to fill up. So people are often affected by toxins differently. Our bodies are designed to detox naturally, but factors like age, sex, genetics, and overall health all influence how well we can handle exposure. For example, two people living in the same moldy home might react very differently. One may experience severe illness while the other shows no symptoms at all. So where can environmental toxins be found? Unfortunately, it feels like just about everything these days can be harmful in one way or another. From volatile organic compounds and solvents to pesticides, cleaning products, and even dryer sheets, we really do live in a toxic world. Complete avoidance isn't realistic. But the good news is there are plenty of ways to limit exposure and reduce your overall toxic burden. Patients don't need to overhaul their entire home overnight. It's better to start small, so focus on products that they use most and make gradual swaps. For example, switching to an aluminum-free deodorant or natural deodorant, or choosing non-toxic cleaning supplies can make a real difference over time. So encourage them to, and also I want you to encourage them to support detox pathways. So stay hydrated, exercise to sweat regularly, spend time in a sauna if it's possible at like your local gym or YMCA. Those small, consistent changes can add up to a big improvements in how they feel and function over time. Another really important toxin to keep on your radar is glyphosate. So glyphosate, what is it? It's a widely used herbicide designed to kill weeds and grasses, but unfortunately it's found just about everywhere these days. So glyphosate has shown up in soil, food, water, rain, and even personal care products, all of which can make their ways into our bodies. In fact, actually, a 2022 study suggested that over 80% of people in the US over the age of 6 had recent exposure to glyphosate. That's a pretty eye-opening reminder of why testing for it can be so valuable. So looking at environmental toxins and mycotoxins together are important because it allows to assess a patient's total toxic burden. You're looking at everything in their home and in everyday life, right? You're looking at everything. But it's also really important that if mycotoxin exposure comes up positive in their body, to not forget to test the home. So one of the really cool things is US BioTek and real-time labs are the only labs with the ability to test both the body and the home. The test is called the mold and mycotoxin building profile on the US BioTek side and the EMA profile, environmental mold and mycotoxin assessment on the real-time side. So it depends on which lab you order it through. But this should always be the first step after a positive mycotoxin test, because the last thing you want to do is lead a patient through a detox and have them to return in a mold-infested home to just go through that whole entire process again. And I like to highlight, and this is a really powerful slide, because if toxins are left unaddressed, they can cause mitochondrial dysregulation. So interesting fact, and one of the things I love sharing with doctors is we naturally lose 10% mitochondrial function every decade from 30 on. Toxin exposure can accelerate that mitochondrial loss and lead to chronic inflammatory disease down the line. Now, we don't know if this is going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30, 40 years from now. This is why it's always a great idea to pair an organic acid test along with toxins to assess that mitochondrial function. This combination actually makes a really great preventative tool. We do have it available. It's called the Motox and is available for order. And we have hormone testing. So hormones are another important test to assess. Did you know that the gut is the largest endocrine organ, right? Not many people know that, but it is. In addition, nutrients and metabolites provided and produced by the GI tract stimulate hormone secretion. So needless to say, the gut plays a critical role in the endocrine system. One thing that I love about US BioTek's dried urine hormone test is the inclusion of endocrine disruptors in our panels. This section consists of forever chemicals and heavy metals that are known to alter the gut composition and cause leaky gut, which can disrupt hormone metabolism and receptor signaling. So this is truly a game changer in hormone testing. And not to mention, just forever chemicals alone, through other labs, they could be $150 plus to test individually. And this is included in the hormone panels. So another thing is dried urine hormone testing offers several advantages over other hormone testing methods. While every doctor, may have their own preference and opinion, it's important to recognize that each test has its place. It's your job as the practitioner to utilize each test to what it was designed for. One of the key benefits of dried urine hormone testing is that it provides the breadth and depth of a 24-hour urine hormone collection, measuring not only all the major hormones, but also their metabolites, which are only available in urine. Yes, metabolites can only be measured in the urine. It offers the time-specific advantages previously only available through saliva testing, such as the 4-point cortisol that reflects the circadian rhythm. cortisol plays a critical role in suppressing inflammation and helping the body manage stress. So chronic stress, however, can deplete cortisol production, which in turn may contribute to gut dysbiosis. So what does a dried urine hormone test, or what can a dried urine hormone test tell you? So US BioTek also offers a really impressive line of dried urine hormone testing. If you haven't heard of it, if you haven't heard of our dried urine hormone test, that's perfectly normal. We just launched it this year, but we have the Adreno Insight, which gives you a great look at the adrenals. Sex Insight, which gives you a look at the sex hormone. Endo Insight is a comprehensive profile where you're getting estrogens, progesterone metabolism, your androgens, endocrine disruptor, glucocorticoids. You're also getting, free 4-point cortisone, and melatonin, organic acids. The Endo Insight is a dried urine, so it gives you everything that the Endo Insight Plus has. In addition, it gives you the cortisol awakening response, which is the saliva portion of it. And what that does is it gives you the typical 4 points saliva, but it also gives you a morning plus 30 and a morning plus 60. So you can see how quickly cortisol responds in the morning. Therefore, cortisol awakening response, it's in the name. So two most popular panels to order, definitely the Endo Insight and the Endo Insight Plus. But that's all the information that you can get from a just a simple hormone test. So one of my personal favorites, food sensitivity and food allergy testing. This I feel like is such an overlooked or looked past testing category, but I'm just going to be honest. A lot of people can benefit from doing a food sensitivity test, right? We, as Americans eat the same 20 foods every single day. And, people like to challenge me on this, but, then they bring it up. Well, that's not true. I'll have spaghetti. I'll have lasagna. I'll have a burger. I'll have a steak. I'm like, you just said beef in 4 different ways, right? And cheese, right? So we're consuming the same 20 to 25 foods every single day. And basically our gut needs a break sometimes. And, we're designed to have a variety of foods and to rotate through foods. But, with meal preppers eating the same 6 things for lunch every single day, it's just really hard to do that on the go society these days. But before we jump too much into that, I just kind of like to go over the difference between allergy and sensitivity. Because a lot of people group them into the same category. So allergy is referring to IgE or immunoglobulin E, right? And this is kind of what you would expect from an allergy, right? So you have hives, itchy, watery eyes, rashes. These can lead to anaphylactic response or anaphylactic shock. Food sensitivities, these are IgG, IgA, IgG4. So food sensitivities are different because they're not life-threatening, but the biggest differentiator between the two is allergies. IgE response typically occurs within minutes to hours after eating the offending food. Food sensitivities are a lot more difficult to pinpoint because they can occur anywhere from days to weeks after contacting the offending food. And symptoms almost start to feel normal. People don't realize that they can feel much better than they do by simply eliminating foods that they're sensitive to, right? And as a lot of times people will associate with, oh, I'm getting older, right? I'm not sleeping as well, or I'm gaining weight, not realizing that those are just symptoms of food sensitivity, but people tend to pair them with aging and just using everyday life as an excuse not to address them. So understanding the antibodies in the gut. So when it comes to food sensitivities, we test, 3, IgG, IgA, and IgG4. And this is something that actually US BioTek does a little bit differently, and I'd like to address it right here on this call. So, IgG, a lot of labs out there will do what they call like total IgG, right? And that is IgG 1, 2, 3, and 4. There are 4 subclasses of IgG. Now, the problem is if you dive into the research, right, IgG, only subclasses 1, 2, and 3 cause inflammation. Actually, IgG4 is anti-inflammatory, and it's actually a blocking antibody for IgE. So IgG4 tells a completely different story. So US BioTek's IgG test, we actually measure only subclasses 1 through 3, and it's looking strictly at inflammation. So you're not getting those false positives like you see with other labs, because the common thing I hear from providers is, I don't believe in food sensitivity testing because you know 50 foods react for every single patient. It's always the same food, and that's different here because the way we're doing it, right? Our IgG test is subclasses 1 through 3, so we're strictly looking at that inflammation. And IgG is also in the blood, whereas IgA, that's looking at what's going on in the mucous membranes. So I'm a huge fan of having providers looking at both IgG and IgA together because it allows you to see what's going on both sides of the gut. So it's just a much more comprehensive tool than just looking at one antibody, because sometimes, although food may be the culprit, if they're just looking at one antibody, they may not be identifying it, right? Because the symptom may be deriving from the IgA. So if they're just looking at the IgG, they're not getting that full picture. And then there's IgG4, which I gave you some previous information on. So IgG4, a lot of research coming out on it, I'd say over the last, 11 years. It's related to eosinophilic esophagitis, known cases of Crohn's disease, things like that, IBD. But like I said, IgG4, it tells a different story from its other subclass counterparts. Again, it's anti-inflammatory. It's also a blocking antibody for IgE. So when it comes to food sensitivities, the whole goal is identify, remove, and then reintroduce. So what do I mean by that, right? So I'm just using the US BioTek food sensitivity test as an example here. So our testing is broken into 5 testing categories, so 0 through 4. And if it lands in the 0 category, basically eat freely, right? If it lands in the 1 category, we want them to consume it every 4 days. If it lands in the 2 or beyond category, we want them to eliminate for 8 to 12 weeks. And that 8 to 12 weeks is called the elimination period. So it's giving their gut a chance to heal itself, right? And that's the great thing about our bodies. It is naturally made to heal itself. Then at the end of that elimination period, we want to reintroduce. So as you can see here on the screen, cow's milk is in the 2 category, which we avoid. So after 8 to 12 weeks, they can consume cow's milk, and they want to wait 4 days in between they introducing the next food. So in that 4 days, the patient's going to be very in tune because, like I said, they've really felt great over that elimination period. So consume some cow's milk, wait 4 days. Did any new symptoms happen? No? Okay. They're okay to consume some cow's milk now in moderation. Next, okay, let's try whey. So the next 4 days, they introduce whey. They consume some whey. Oh, it feels like a knife has stabbed me in my stomach, right? That's how some patients have described it to me. And that is a sign that, okay, whey is still problematic, and to keep it out of the diet. The whole idea of food sensitivity testing is not to punish people and say that you can never have this food ever again. The whole goal is let's give the gut a break and then reintroduce it again in moderation. Now, there are certain cases where, patients should not and should not consume a food again. And next one is celiac. People with celiac disease, obviously gluten, gliadin, or wheat, they should not consume because it will make them very sick. Speaking of that, I'll be on my next slide. But the whole goal is to get people to enjoy foods again in moderation, right? So we don't want to punish them and say you can never have this again. We want to get to the point where they're comfortable, they're feeling good, and they can still enjoy food. Food is a really important part of life, and just enjoying it. So that is food sensitivity testing. Next, obviously, celiac testing. I talked about it, and I'll just touch upon it briefly here. But, obviously, why would you do a celiac test? Well, if a customer comes through and has a history of celiac disease in their family, that's obviously a good indication to test. A lot of times too, you can, we have what is called here at US BioTek. So if you order one of our food sensitivity panels, you can actually mark a celiac reflex panel. And what that does is first we run the food sensitivity test, and you're basically giving us pre-authorization to go ahead and run a celiac panel if the patient comes back positive for gluten, gliadin, or wheat. And like I said, that's a really nice because typically people with celiac disease will be positive for those three substances. And like I said, it's just a great indicator of looking at celiac disease because, like I said, celiac disease again presents itself similar symptoms that we have already gone through across all these testing platforms. So that is also another really important test to consider. When it comes to assessing gut health. But like I said, I think you can kind of narrow this one down by just asking questions that they have a history in their family. So, I just want to go over a summary of US BioTek's testing services. So, obviously, we offer all the testing that I went over here today, but I want people to understand because as doctors walk through like trade shows and conferences, they look at us and they say, "That's a bunch of really random tests you guys have up there," and I'm like, "Not really. They're all connected." Right? That we're all about gut health testing. So when I say we're a gut health testing laboratory, that's what I mean. So obviously food sensitivity and food allergy testing, remember food sensitivity being IgG, IgA, IgG4, food allergy testing being IgE. To the GI microbiome, we also offer a vaginal microbiome and oral microbiome. Those are really cool tests as well. Nutrition testing, hormone testing, organic acids, mycotoxins. Now remember, toxins cause mitochondrial dysfunction, so that's why it's a really good idea to pair that organic acid test when doing a toxin test. We also do vitamin D, we have thyroid, we have celiac testing. But when it comes to, your patients and where to start, right? Like I said, we don't have a crystal ball and it's asking questions, right? Was there any changes in their life right before the symptoms started occurring? For example, like, oh, I changed my diet, right? Then you might want to go to a food sensitivity or food allergy test and even a mycotoxin test. Well, why a mycotoxin test? Because remember, mycotoxins are highly present on like agricultural products like coffee beans or, alcohol or meats, nuts, things like that. So they went more paleo where they're consuming more nuts, right? That could be a factor in it as well, right? Or another question, is maybe they started using new products when their symptoms started happening, which could be allergy or toxins, right? Like, they think they went to a more natural product, but they could have had, maybe there was an ingredient in there that they were having allergic response to. Or maybe they switched to a product which, they can detox. And so that's where you would look at a toxin profile. And maybe they moved or started a new job, right? And there's actually, and that could be mycotoxin testing. So maybe they moved to a new office building that's infested with mold, right? And they're being breathing in mold and they're getting sick from the mold. The other thing is that's not on the screen, and that's my bad. I'm sorry, but I can't change it right now. But hormones, right? Maybe they have a new job and it's just really stressful and it's driving down, it's putting a big stress in their burden, which we know, stress causes, is linked to cortisol, which causes inflammation, right? And dysbiosis in the gut. So just about asking questions. Maybe they traveled outside the world, right? Hey, I just went to South America. I came back. I didn't feel right, right? Microbiome. Maybe they picked up a parasite when they were traveling. So just really important to ask questions and get to know what is going on. Because remember, you're on this journey with them, right? Where no one wants to not feel optimal or not feel well, right? And you're on this journey with them. You got to let them know that, hey, there is going to be no one test fits all, right? It's going to be a trial and error process, but we're going to get there, but hang with it, right? Just explaining that to the patient and letting them know the realistic expectations is just going to be much better for you and them. But the last thing is I want everyone to remember when walking away from this, that every test has its purpose. Every test has its purpose, right? There's going to be no one size fits all, one test fits all, right? Like I was discussing, but it's your job to make sure that you're utilizing the best test for that specific patient in that specific situation. So asking questions and explaining to the patient, being communicative, hey, I'm ordering this test and this is what's going to do and this is what's going to help me, right? Just really help the patient understand the process and that you're working with them and you're doing the best that you can. But there will probably be some not trial by fire, but you're going to order a lot of tests that probably are not going to tell the problem. But what it's doing is it's letting us know, okay, we're not going down that rabbit hole, right? Those are not the problems. Let's look over here. We're narrowing down our options. Let's fix this together. So and like I said, we want to make this webinar really brief. for you all because my goal was 30 minutes, but I see I'm running a little bit over. But again, I want to thank you all so much for attending this webinar and discussing gut health testing and some tests to consider. Thank you all so much for attending today. It has just truly been a pleasure. But yes, have a good day and be healthy, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
For any questions or issues, you may contact Avexia Diagnostics by email at info@avexiadiagnostics.com or by phone, 5 days a week at extended hours, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time at 888-852-2723. Thank you, Chase, for this informative presentation. Thank you again for joining us for this webinar event. Until next time, from everyone at Avexia Diagnostics and US BioTek, stay healthy, stay safe, and we wish you all the best on your pathway to wellness.